I caught my parents renovating my lake house without permission, so I evicted them from home. My name is Qley, and I need to tell you about something that happened to me recently that still makes my blood boil. I run my own digital consulting firm here in Houston, Texas. We work with startups and mid-sized companies, helping them build their online presence and marketing strategies. The work pays well, really well, actually. Over the years, I managed to save up enough money to buy a house for my parents in the Woodlands. They were over the moon when I handed them the keys 8 years ago. I also helped my younger sister financially. Her name is Natalie, and she lives with her husband Andrew and their 2 kids in a rental townhouse over in Katy. I pay for that townhouse every month and have been doing this for nearly 5 years now. Natalie works as an office manager at a dental clinic, but her salary barely covers groceries. So I decided to step in and help. A few years back, I bought myself a lake house up near Lake Conroe. It's about an hour-and-a-half drive from downtown Houston. I don't go there often because work keeps me incredibly busy, but that place became my sanctuary. When the city heat and traffic get too much, I pack a bag and spend a long weekend there. The house is modest but charming. Cedar shingle siding, a wraparound porch, and this incredible view of the water. I gave spare keys to my parents in case of emergency, like if a pipe burst during winter or if a storm damaged something. They never actually used those keys as far as I knew. Last Wednesday afternoon, I was in the office working on a campaign pitch for a tech startup when my phone rang. It was Greg, my neighbor from the lake house. We weren't close friends, just exchanged pleasantries when we saw each other at the marina or the local grocery store. So when I saw his name on the screen, I was immediately confused. "Hey, Colleen, I wanted to check something with you," Greg said, his voice cautious. "Sure, what's going on? Did a tree fall on the property or something?" I stopped typing and stared at my computer screen, waiting. "Well, are you selling your place or doing major renovations there?" My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about? I didn't sell anything and I'm not doing any renovations. Why would you think that?" "Well, there are people at your property right now. Construction workers. They've got a whole crew, a big truck, equipment. It looks like serious work is happening." My heart started pounding. "Are you absolutely sure it's my house?" "Positive. I'm looking at it right now from my dock. Want me to send you a photo?" "Yes, please send it immediately." A minute later, my phone buzzed. I opened the photo and felt like someone had punched me in the gut. There was my house, my porch, and a massive truck with Brazos Valley Construction written on the side. But what really made my hands start shaking was seeing the people I recognized in the photo. My parents were standing near the front steps. My sister Natalie was there too, along with her husband Andrew. They were talking to some workers and pointing at different parts of the house. I zoomed in on the photo and read the company name on the truck again, making sure I wasn't seeing things. Then I sat there remembering buying this house 3 years ago, signing all the paperwork, paying for it entirely with my own money. This was my property, my refuge, my escape. And now someone was doing construction work there without my permission, without even telling me. I didn't call anyone. I didn't want to have this conversation over the phone. I needed to see everything with my own eyes and confront them face to face. I told my assistant I was leaving for the day, grabbed my car keys and my purse, and drove straight out of the city. The whole drive up Highway 59, I kept thinking about what could possibly be happening. Maybe there was some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe they were just checking something for me. But deep down, I knew something was very, very wrong. When I arrived at the lake house, I saw the construction truck was still parked in my driveway. Workers were carrying lumber and drywall into the house. My parents noticed my Lexus immediately and walked toward me. My mother was actually smiling. My father looked completely calm. They acted like everything was totally normal, like I had just shown up for a Sunday barbecue. I got out of the car and asked them directly, my voice shaking, "What is all this? What's going on here?" My mother answered first, still wearing that infuriating smile. "Oh, sweetheart, we decided to do some renovations on the house. We're expanding it quite a bit. After everything is finished, Natalie and Andrew and the kids will move in here permanently." I looked at my father, waiting for him to say this was some kind of joke. He nodded in agreement. "Yes, this lake house is too small for a family with children, so we decided to make it bigger. We're adding a whole new wing with 2 bedrooms and expanding the kitchen and living room. The kids need space to grow." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They spoke so casually, like they were telling me about their plans for dinner, not about destroying my property. I ran past them up the porch steps and into the house. Inside, I saw that workers had already torn down the wall between the living room and what used to be a guest bedroom. There was construction dust everywhere, covering my furniture, my books, everything. They had started framing out a massive addition, and the whole place looked like a disaster zone. I turned to my parents who had followed me inside, and I could barely control my voice. "Have you completely lost your minds? This is my house, my property. You had no right to do any of this without even asking me." My father crossed his arms defensively. "We don't need to ask your permission. We're one family and you gave us spare keys to this house yourself. That implies trust." Before I could respond, Natalie walked in with Andrew right behind her. She looked annoyed, like I was the one causing problems. "Colleen, stop being so dramatic about this. You already have that huge loft apartment in Midtown. Plus, you own a successful business and make excellent money. This whole situation is unfair. I'm forced to raise my children in a cramped rental townhouse while you have multiple properties just sitting here." I stood there looking at all of them. My parents, my sister, her husband, the people I had supported financially for years, the people I had helped without ever asking for anything in return. And now they were standing in my house, defending their decision to take it from me without even the basic courtesy of asking. I felt rage building inside me like a volcano about to erupt. But I knew if I started screaming, nothing productive would come of it. So I walked out silently, got in my car, and drove away. I could see them in my rear-view mirror standing on the porch, probably thinking I would calm down and eventually accept their plans. But they were catastrophically wrong about that. I drove back toward Houston, but I didn't go home. I was too angry to just sit in my apartment and do nothing. I needed to take immediate action. I pulled into a Starbucks parking lot, opened my laptop, and searched for Braz Valley Construction, the company whose name I had seen on that truck. I found their website and their office address in Conroe. It wasn't far from where I was. I grabbed my tablet where I kept digital copies of all my important documents, including the property deed for the lake house, and drove straight to their office. The construction company office was in a small strip mall near the highway. I walked in and asked the receptionist to see whoever was in charge. She said the owner was in a meeting, but I told her it was extremely urgent and concerned their current project at my property. She made a phone call, and 5 minutes later I was sitting in the owner's office. He was a heavy-set man in his 50s with a weathered face and calloused hands. He introduced himself as Tommy Whitfield. I didn't waste time on small talk. I opened my tablet and showed him the property documents. "I'm the legal owner of the house where your workers are currently doing construction. I want to know on what basis you started this renovation and who signed the contract with you." Tommy looked uncomfortable. He opened a file cabinet and pulled out a folder. "An older couple came to us 3 weeks ago. They presented what they said was a power of attorney from the owner. They told us they were family members and that the owner had given them full permission to do renovations. Do you have copies of those documents?" "Yes, of course." He made copies for me right there. I looked through them quickly and my hands started trembling. There was a document with my signature on it, except it absolutely wasn't my signature. Someone had forged it, and they hadn't even done a particularly good job. My actual signature has a very distinctive loop in the C, and they had completely missed it. Mr. Whitfield, these people lied to you. I never signed any power of attorney. This signature is forged. I am the sole owner of this property, and I never authorized any construction work whatsoever. Your workers must stop immediately. Tommy's face went pale. Are you absolutely certain about this? I'm completely certain. Here are my documents proving ownership. I want all construction work stopped right now, today. If your workers continue for even one more hour, I will hold your company legally responsible for all the damage. Tommy picked up his phone and made a call. I heard him telling someone to stop all work at my address immediately and to pack up everything and leave the site. After he hung up, he apologized profusely. I took all the copies of documents related to my house and left his office. I was driving back into Houston when my phone rang. It was my father. I answered, my voice cold as ice. Why did the construction crew pack up everything and leave? We were in the middle of important work. His voice was stern and angry, like he had every right to be upset with me. Because it's my house and I don't need or want any renovation there. Colleen, what are you doing? We already paid them a substantial deposit. Do you have any idea how much money we've invested in this? You paid them with forged documents. You forged my signature on legal paperwork. That's a serious crime. And now you're going to have very serious problems. You wouldn't dare do anything to your own family. We raised you better than this. Watch me. I hung up. My hands were still shaking, but now it was from adrenaline and determination, not fear. I immediately called my lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Reeves, who had handled all my business legal matters for the past 6 years. I told her I needed to see her urgently about a personal family matter. She said she could meet me in 2 hours at her office in the Galleria area. At Patricia's office, I laid out everything that had happened. I showed her the forged documents, the property deed, the photos from Greg. I told her the entire story from beginning to end. Patricia listened carefully, taking detailed notes on her legal pad. Colleen, what your parents and sister did is document forgery and possibly even fraud. Those are criminal offenses. You can absolutely sue them, and they'll have to compensate you for all damages to your property. You could also press criminal charges if you wanted to. I want to do exactly that. I want them to pay for every single thing they've destroyed. Patricia made several phone calls right there from her office. When she finished, she told me that the next day a property damage specialist would go to my lake house and assess everything professionally. I thanked her and finally went home. That evening, I didn't eat dinner. I just sat on my couch with a glass of wine, thinking about everything that had happened. I felt betrayed in a way I had never experienced before. These were people I had supported unconditionally for years, and they had stabbed me in the back without hesitation. The next day, I met with Patricia again. She had the assessment report ready, and it was even worse than I thought. The specialist had documented everything in excruciating detail. The destroyed wall, the damaged hardwood floors from all the construction traffic, the ruined drywall, the unnecessary framing for the addition they had started building. The total damage was valued at $18,000. This is an extremely solid case, Patricia said, sliding the report across her desk to me. But I need to ask you something important. Are you absolutely sure you want to proceed with legal action? They're your family, and this will create a permanent rift. I'm completely sure, but I have another matter I need your help with. I pulled out another folder from my bag. Inside were all the documents for the house in the woodlands where my parents lived. The house I had bought for them 8 years ago with my own money. This house has always been legally mine. My parents have lived their rentry all these years. They only paid the utility bills and basic maintenance. I paid the property taxes, the insurance, the homeowners association fees, and never charged them a single dollar in rent. Now I want to evict them. Patricia looked through the documents carefully, examining the deed and the tax records. Everything is completely in order. The house is yours with clear title. They have no lease agreement, no rental contract, nothing. They live there only because you allowed it as a gift. Legally, you have every right to evict them. Are you certain about this? This is a nuclear option, Colleen. Absolutely certain I want them out. All right, give me about 45 minutes. Patricia drafted an eviction notice on her computer. According to Texas law, I had to give them 30 days to vacate the property. She printed the document and handed it to me. I put it in my folder along with the damage assessment report. I went home and waited. I knew they would contact me very soon. That evening, my mother called. Her voice was icy cold, colder than I had ever heard it. Your father and I are extremely disappointed in you, Colleen. We need to have a serious talk about your behavior. There will be a family meeting tomorrow evening at our house. You need to be there and you need to come prepared to apologize. I could already imagine exactly what this meeting would be like. They would all sit there and try to shame me, to manipulate me, to make me feel guilty for protecting my own property. They would pressure me to forget about everything and just hand over the lake house to Natalie like a good little sister. But I had very different plans. I'll be there, I said calmly. Good. And Colleen, you need to behave properly and reasonably tomorrow. This family drama needs to end. Don't worry, I will behave exactly as the situation requires. I hung up and actually smiled for the first time in days. They thought they would lecture me and I would back down like I always had in the past. They had absolutely no idea what I was bringing to their little family meeting. I spent the rest of the evening carefully organizing all my documents, making sure I had everything I needed. Tomorrow was going to be very interesting indeed. The next evening, I drove to my parents' house in the Woodlands, actually to my house where my parents lived. I parked in the circular driveway and took a deep breath before getting out. I had my folder with all the documents tucked securely under my arm. When I walked in through the front door, everyone was already assembled and waiting for me. My mother and father sat on the large sectional sofa in the living room. Natalie and Andrew sat next to them. They all looked at me with the same expression, disapproval mixed with barely concealed anger. They had placed a single armchair across from the sofa facing them. It looked exactly like a courtroom setup. They were the jury and judge, and I was supposed to be the guilty defendant on trial. I sat down and placed my folder carefully on my lap. Nobody said hello. Nobody asked how I was doing or if I wanted something to drink. My father started talking immediately, his voice stern and authoritative. Colleen, the entire family is extremely unhappy with your behavior. You embarrassed us in front of that construction company. You threatened us with legal consequences over a simple family matter. This is completely unacceptable and childish. Natalie leaned forward, her face flushed. Andrew and I had everything planned out perfectly. We need that lake house to raise our children properly. They need space, fresh air, a yard to play in, access to good schools. Because of your conflict with the construction company, our move has been postponed indefinitely. You're being incredibly selfish, Colleen. You always have been. I looked at each of them slowly. My mother had her arms crossed tightly. Andrew was nodding along with everything Natalie said. They genuinely believed they were right. They honestly thought I was the problem here. Your move hasn't been postponed, I said calmly, meeting each of their eyes. It's been completely and permanently canceled. None of you will ever cross the threshold of my lake house again. I had the locks changed yesterday morning. You no longer have any access whatsoever. My mother gasped dramatically. My father's face turned bright red. Natalie stood up abruptly, knocking over her wine glass. You can't do that. We already made plans. We told the kids they'd have their own rooms. I can do whatever I want with my property, and that's not all. I opened my folder and took out the damage assessment report. I placed it on the coffee table between us with deliberate precision. You owe me $18,000 for destroying my property. This is the official professional assessment of the damage your unauthorized construction project caused. If you refuse to pay, I will take you to court, and when I do, I'll present these documents where you forged my signature. That's a felony in Texas. You could face serious criminal charges. My mother immediately started crying, clutching her chest dramatically like she was having a heart attack. How can you do this to us? We're your parents. We gave you life. My father stood up and shouted, his face purple with rage. "You wouldn't dare take us to court. If you do that, we will disown you completely. You'll be dead to this family. We'll tell everyone what a horrible, ungrateful daughter you are." I looked at him and smiled calmly. "That suits me perfectly fine. Strangers won't be living in my house anyway." My father froze, confusion crossing his face. "What do you mean by that?" I reached into my folder again and pulled out the eviction notice. I placed it on the table next to the damage report. "Since you're planning to disown me anyway, this will make things much easier for everyone. This is a legal eviction notice. You have 30 days to move out of my house, this house where we're sitting right now." My father grabbed the paper and read it, his hands visibly shaking. "This is absolutely ridiculous. You can't evict us. This is our home. We've lived here for 8 years. No, it's my home. It has always been my home legally. I bought it with my money. You have lived here rent-free for 8 years. I never charged you a single dollar. I paid all the property taxes, all the insurance, all the HOA fees, but I'm done financially supporting people who forge my signature and try to steal my property." Natalie jumped up from the sofa, her voice shrill. "Colleen, you've completely lost your mind. You're destroying this entire family over a stupid house." My mother was still crying louder now. "We raised you. We invested so much money in you. We paid for your education, your clothes, your food, everything when you were growing up. You owe us." I stood up too, my voice steady and cold. "And I invested a considerable amount of money in you over the years. I constantly gave you money for various so-called emergencies. Last year alone, I gave you $7,000 for things you claimed were urgent. I paid for your cruise to the Caribbean. I paid for your anniversary trip to Nashville. I bought you that new Buick 4 months ago, and you never appreciated any of it. Now you have 30 days to leave. I turned to Natalie, and I haven't forgotten about you either. I called your landlord yesterday afternoon. I told him I will no longer be paying for your townhouse rental. You also have 1 month to either find new housing or come up with the money to continue renting that place on your own. That's $1,500 a month, by the way, in case you forgot." Natalie's face went white as a sheet. Andrew grabbed her arm, looking panicked. "What? You can't do that. We have children. Where are we supposed to go?" "You should have thought about your children before you conspired to steal my house. Actions have consequences." I picked up my folder and walked toward the front door. Behind me, everyone started talking at once, their voices overlapping in chaos. My father was yelling that I was ungrateful and would regret this. My mother was crying even louder, wailing about what the neighbors would think. Natalie was calling me horrible names I won't repeat. Andrew was screaming about how cruel and heartless I was. I opened the door, walked out into the warm Texas evening, and closed it firmly behind me. Their voices were still audible from the driveway. I got in my Lexus and drove away without looking back. Over the next few days, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. My parents called repeatedly. Natalie called. Andrew called. They left countless voicemails and sent dozens of text messages. The messages started out angry and threatening, then became pleading and manipulative, then turned angry again. I read a few of them and then blocked all their numbers. I didn't want to hear from any of them. I had said everything I needed to say at that meeting. A week later, my cousin Amanda called me. "Colleen, what on earth is going on? Natalie posted something on Facebook about you and it's getting tons of attention." I thanked Amanda and hung up. I opened Facebook and found Natalie's post. She had written a long, dramatic message saying that I had lost my mind, that I was trying to destroy the family, that I was evicting my elderly parents from their home, and that because of my revenge, her family might end up homeless. She made it sound like I was an absolute monster. The post had hundreds of comments already. Most of them were from people I didn't even know, and they were calling me terrible things. But I wasn't going to stay silent and let them control the narrative. I wrote my own detailed comment under Natalie's post. In my comment, I told the complete truth. I explained that the lake house was my property and that my family had forged my signature to start unauthorized construction. I wrote about how I had bought a house for my parents and let them live there rent-free for 8 years. I wrote about paying rent for my sister's townhouse for 5 years. Then I uploaded screenshots, property documents showing my name as the sole owner, bank statements showing all the payments I had made to help them over the years. Everything was there in black and white, undeniable proof. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Relatives started commenting, shocked by the revelations. My aunt wrote that my parents had always told everyone the Woodlands house was theirs, that they had bought it with their retirement savings. My uncle said my parents had claimed I never helped them financially and that I was selfish with my money. Other relatives piled on. They wrote that Natalie was ungrateful and entitled. They said my parents had systematically lied to the whole family for years. Natalie deleted her original post within 2 hours, but screenshots were already circulating throughout the family. 6 months have passed since that day at the lake house. I still run my digital consulting firm. Business is actually better than ever. We just signed 3 major new clients. I go to my lake house sometimes on weekends. The new grass is growing back beautifully. I hired contractors to properly repair the wall and remove the framing for the addition that was started. The house looks like it did before, maybe even better. I don't communicate with my parents, Natalie or Andrew. They tried reaching out a few more times through other relatives, but I made it crystal clear I wasn't interested in reconciliation. What they did was unforgivable. They didn't just try to take my property. They betrayed my trust, forged my signature, and then tried to manipulate me into feeling guilty about stopping them. Some people say that family is everything, that you should forgive family no matter what they do. But I don't believe that anymore. Family shouldn't steal from you. Family shouldn't forge your signature. Family shouldn't take advantage of your generosity for years and then demand even more. I protected what was mine and I stood up for myself, and I would do it all over again.